Hey guys, so we're going to attempt to do one of these lessons sort of live like this so that I can play you some music and actually talk about it instead of you just clicking on links and answering some questions. So today our lesson is going to be over the birth of the American teenager. So this is definitely a different experience because you guys are teenagers. You know what teenagers are. You've always been called teenagers since you probably hit 12 or 13 years old. But it turns out that the group teenager didn't actually exist as a word um, until the 1950s. So what actually happened was you were an adolescent until you were 18, and then you became an adult. And so there was really no in between. Um, but the 1950s are going to sort of change that. So if we were together in class, I would have asked you to define for me what a teenager is. And I can tell you that the most typical answers that we get are somebody who's 13 to 18, or somebody who's not yet an adult but isn't a child anymore. Something about being sort of in between there. And so that's where we're going to focus our attention on today. So we're going to make an attempt here, see if I can switch back and forth and sort of play some of these songs for you. So we are going to see if I can switch. We're going to start with School Days. So this is Chuck Berry. And Chuck Berry, obviously, we have talked about already. And I'm hoping you guys are going to be able to hear my speaker fine. So Chuck Berry had this song. This is called School Days from 1957. I would like to play it for you. Let's make sure it'll work here. Okay, so I'm hoping that there's enough volume on this for you to hear. I'm going to turn this up a little bit just in case for our next one. Okay, so there we go again. All right, so basically here with Chuck Berry, again, this is obviously a picture of him. We've looked at him before, his big, huge guitar. So this song is called School Days, and I've got the lyrics open for you. They're also posted with this lesson, but I want you guys to be able to see, just in case, as we go through. So it starts with up in the morning, out to school. The teacher is teaching the golden rule. American history and practical math, you study them hard and hoping to pass. Working your fingers right down to the bone, and the guy behind you won't leave you alone. Ring, ring goes the bell. The cook in the lunchroom's ready to sell. You're lucky if you can find a seat. You're fortunate if you have time to eat. Back in the classroom, open your books. Gee, but the teacher don't know how mean she looks, which is my favorite part of the whole song. Hopefully that is not me. Hopefully I don't look mean. So who is this song about? Who is the you in this song? Chuck Berry is definitely talking to teenagers. He is talking to your generation. The person in the song is going to school, and I think that he was really trying to get really the feel for teenage America when he was writing this song and recording it. Obviously, the people who are going to be buying this record would have been teenagers your age in high school because this is them. He is describing what their life is like, what their day is like. So really, what's important about this type of song, because it's not the only one at the time that is aimed at teenagers, what's really important is that we understand that this is going to be a brand new group of kids a brand new group who's going to be influencing the music, what it sounds like, who's buying the records instead of just adults. Now teenagers are going to. And then this lesson is going to sort of explain how that shift happened, because it definitely wasn't overnight, but it kind of felt like it for them. So I'm going to close these back out. So we're going to look at these two pictures right here. I think I can blow them up for you. Okay, so this girl here, we looked at pictures like this when we talked about the Industrial Revolution in world history class. So this is a girl who is working in a textile factory. The caption says she's 14 or 15 and that this was in 1911. So this is in America during the Industrial Revolution. And you can assume that her life, it's hard, right? She's 14 or 15 years old and working in this factory. This is not an after-school job for her. This is life. This is an everyday type job. If you remember our conversations about working in these factories, these machines are all moving parts. They're dangerous. The air quality is not good inside of these factories. And she's 14 or 15 and working full-time inside one of these factories. So this is teenage life before the word teenager existed, because you didn't have a teenage life, right? You were a child and then you became an adult. In this case, you became an adult much earlier than what we would consider today. By contrast, this is a picture of teens from the 1940s. You can see that these kids look like they're enjoying things. Definitely not the same as the other girl. This is a gigantic radio. It's like a jukebox. You would have records loaded in here and then they would play. You can see the difference in how they're dressed, whereas the girl in the factory was wearing just very, plain, typical clothes. They've got their little shoes, their saddle shoes on. He's wearing a suit. He's got the sweater with, the button-up shirt underneath it with the collar there. They've got ping pong, what do you call those, paddles? Is that the right word? They're ping pong paddles. There we go. So clearly they are somewhere where there is a ping pong table so that they can play. So this is a huge change between the two of them. So when does this change occur? When do we go from having this girl here to these kids here? How does that change happen? Well, actually, it's kind of World War II. So before that, pretty much you were working to help your family. And so that's going to be what you would do when you were 14 or 15 years old. After World War II happens, though, there's a shift in our country. So because the economy is like booming at the time, because, the rest of the world had pretty much been damaged by the war and our factories hadn't, we're booming. And so people are coming home from the war, they're having kids. The end of the 1940s, beginning of the 1950s, that's what we call the baby boomer generation. That's where my parents are from. And everything's just kind of going to change. It's a time of great prosperity in America, and these kids are not going to have that responsibility of going to work. Instead, they're going to have an opportunity to sort of be teenagers, be kids. And so that's going to change really the shift in what we see with teenagers becoming teenagers. So if I look here, I wish I could blow this up for you. Not that much, Miss J. Not that much. All right, so this is the average weekly income of a teenage boy in these two different years. This is a decade apart. This includes your allowance. I don't know if you guys get allowance. I didn't get one. My kids don't get one now. Plus any job earnings they had. And these jobs might include like shoveling the driveway for your neighbor or mowing their lawn. It doesn't necessarily mean like job, but any income that they had. So in 1946, the average weekly income for a teenage boy, $2.41 whopping cents. Okay. In 1956, it's $8.96. So within just that 10 years, you can see the increases like 4 times. Rounded. I don't do mental math. I do rounding though. Okay. So this is from Time Magazine. that their income is increasing by 4 times. So this is basically going to give them the opportunity to have way more spending money that they can spend on pretty much whatever they want. What kinds of things are they going to spend money on? Right down here. Well, I'm going to say food. It's probably what you guys would say. You'd buy food, right? Of course, back then they would go to the diners and they would get like the milkshakes, on the counters with the little chairs and everything. Maybe car stuff. Maybe if they have a car, they're working on their car. Maybe a date. You might take a girl out on a date and pay for it. So those are definitely things. We're going to look at a couple of other things and see some advertisements and how they were going to change. So first of all, this is a Coke ad. And you can see that this comes from the old school fountain. So you've got the guy, like they dressed like this when they worked in the fountains. And then here's your fountain drink. Fountain Coke is the best Coke there is out there. And then of course you can have all of these different syrups, and they made ice cream floats and things like that there too. So in this first advertisement, this is really trying to get you to see the relationship between father and son. Okay, so it's all about family. We've got, oh, it's so nice. They went out to get a Coke together. Aw. That's what the ad is aiming for. And if we read this, it says, life's big moments are often little ones, which is a true statement. One of them is that happy moment at the soda fountain with a tinkling glass of ice-cold Coca-Cola. Delicious and refreshing, Coca-Cola has the taste that all ages like. So this ad is like really pushing that idea of family and relationship. But it's going to change. We're going to see an advertisement here from 1954. So this is just about 15 years later. This is for some teenagers who are, okay, this is a 7-Up ad. This says, slumber party. Gee, that's dandy. Look your sharpest, everyone. Snappy PJs come in handy. Fresh up parties sure are fun. So yeah, they wore their fanciest pajamas to the slumber party. So what's going on in this ad? Well, we've got the girl on the phone over here with her 7-Up in her hand. We've got a girl with her 7-Up right here. These two girls are with the record player. She's got a record in her hand. She's eating a sandwich called a Stackwich, which we can talk about later. I would not eat one of these, but maybe you guys would. These girls are doing hair. So it's a slumber party, right? It's fun. See if I can scroll and actually read this. I think I'm going to be able to. It's slow. Okay, so basically this ad is trying to sell them, right, 7-Up, that you have to have your 7-Up to go to your slumber party. Let me see, I might be able to read it up close. Enjoy sparkling, crystal clear 7-Up often. 7-Up is pure, so good, so wholesome that everybody, from tiny tots to grandmas and all ages in between, may fresh up to their heart's content. And 7-Up makes food taste extra good. So have a Stackwich with a chilled 7-Up. By 7-Up wherever you see those bright 7-Up signs. All about advertising, right? So you gotta have a 7-Up and a Stackwich if you're gonna have a good slumber party. Let's keep that in mind. Okay. So advertisements are gonna change because they're now being aimed, instead of at the family like we saw here, they're being aimed at teenagers very specifically here. Have your mom buy 7-Up before you have the girls over, because that's gonna make your slumber party better. It's not the only type of advertisement that is going on. We're going to see a change here as well. This is a radio ad from 1938. And what you can see here is that this is one of those old time gigantic radios. It's like the size of my podium in my classroom. Let's be serious. And who's listening to the radio together? Dad and son. How nice is that? And then this is an ad that goes through and explains all of the fantastic features of this radio and why you need to buy it. But on the flip side, let's aim at teenagers once again, because we're going to see in 1959, we have an ad for this pocket radio. Pocket full of power, it says. So this is a small radio that you could take with you. And it basically, again, who's in this ad? These are teenagers. And so they're trying to get people, look, you can take it anywhere. They're biking, and they took their radio. Can you imagine trying to take that gigantic radio out of Dad's office room? No, you got to have a little compact one so you can go wherever you want. So, yeah, let's aim at teenagers. I'm kind of curious what advertisements you guys see on TV today that you think are aimed right at you. I feel like we should do a study on the Super Bowl ads and try to figure out if there's like teenager ones, which ones are aimed at specifically adults or kids. You guys, if you watch TV at different times of the day, you will see different types of ads. When they assume that you would be in school, you will see advertisements that would be for like your grandma's age. So all about like retirement and insurance stuff. That's the stuff that airs during the day because they think that's who's home watching. So that's still a case today. Like they're still aiming it at target audiences. So this is not too different at all. So I'm going to flip down and show this. This comes from a Life magazine, which doesn't exist anymore, from 1959, that describes how teenagers are part of this gigantic new area of the economy and that we needed to target them so that we could actually make more money off them. So they talk about here how the boy's chief possession used to be his bike, and a girl had her party wardrobe. Well, not really anymore. Now they have their own phonographs, record players, TV sets, cameras. Nobody knows how much parents are actually spending, it says. So this is my favorite part here. Here are some interesting facts about this brand new market. First of all, food. Teenagers eat 20% more than adults. I could see that. They down 3.5 billion quarts of milk every year, although I suspect that's probably changed. 4 times as much that is drunk by the infant population. It's a lot. Teenagers are the main prop of the ice cream industry, gobbling 145 million gallons of ice cream a year. It's a ton of ice cream. Beauty care. Teenagers spent 20 million on lipstick last year, 25 million on deodorants. That's good. 9 million on home permanents, which would be like dyeing your hair or doing your own curls at home. Male teenagers own 2 million electric razors. And for entertainment, teenagers lay out more than 1.5 billion with a B a year in entertainment. They spend 75 million on single pop records. So we talked about those. They've got the song, the main song on one side, you'd flip it over. There's a B side to it, so a second song. Although they create new musical idols, they are staunchly faithful to the old. Elvis Presley is still their favorite, sold 25 million copies of single records in the last 4 years since this article came out. So, wow, teenagers are spending money. So, of course, we're going to aim our advertising directly at them because we definitely want to make sure that we are taking advantage of that. So here is a picture that kind of went with that article. This is showing an example of what kids are buying, which is a lot. There is so much candy and food and soda right down here. Cars, definitely a thing. So I would dare say that we probably spend money as teenagers on cars like they did back then. Of course, they went cruising in cars all the time, so they would definitely want to make those look nice with like the white walls. We have got stuffed animals. I see Raggedy Andy. Records, of course. Other music. There's a guitar and a banjo up here. These are the things that teenagers were spending money on. So we have this new demographic that didn't exist before. Now it does. And not only does it exist, but they have spending money. So that's why this is going to be such a huge thing to try and get them to actually spend their money on their products. So it's interesting how advertising is going to help to create this generation. what's really interesting then is that this generation will then help to create the rock and roll movement, and sort of once Elvis, the rockabilly sound kind of changes, they're going to be listening to rock and roll music. Now, our next lesson is going to focus on basically how once the teenagers become this established group, how adults were terrified of this new established group, and rock and roll music plays a huge, huge part in that. So these are the things teenagers were buying. We'll probably make some comparisons to things that you guys spend your money on today. And then I want to play the rest of School Daze for you. Let's see, I'm going to pull the lyrics up also. So we started right about here. Okay, so we can definitely hear, of course, it's very Chuck Berry sounding, right, with the guitar and the backing music that he was pretty popular for. So the question here is, what was the you in the song doing after school? And I think I started just a little bit too late, but close up your books, get out of your seat, down the halls and into the street, up to the corner and round the bend, right to the juke joint, you go in. So this is like where you would hang out after school. It's sort of that diner where they've got the big jukebox, and then it tells you all about dropping your coin in so that you could pick your song. You've been wanting to dance, feeling it all day long, and now you actually get to go and dance. And then I love down here because he's like, long live rock and roll. And it's interesting because this term rock and roll, they don't actually even know where it started. And so it's interesting whenever it starts to pop up in music and the first couple of times you see it. And we'll talk about some of the DJs a little bit and where we think that that might have come from, but to see it actually in the song and them acknowledging that this is a new type of music that the teenagers are listening to. And then, of course, the parents hate it. So, of course, the teens love it. That's all mixed in together. And he works it into his songs when he is singing. So that is the birth of the American teenager. It is definitely a different thing than what we experienced before. And so this is where you guys come from. So we are going to move on our next lesson, like I said, and talk about basically how terrifying the teenagers were to the adults and how rock and roll music definitely scared adults. So I think that that really shows you how powerful music can be, because you had an entire generation of people who were petrified of this kind of music. So that is where we will go next time. See ya.